Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and I am here with reality television producer extraordinaire. I'm here.
I knew you were going to say extraordinaire, but continue.
Chris DeRosa, you have worked on The Real Housewives of New York. You've worked on every television show Bethenny has done, aside from her
Bethenny Ever After.
Bethenny Ever After. We're talking The Big Shot with Bethenny. We're talking Bethenny and Frederick. Mm-hmm. May it rest in peace.
Yes.
You worked on season 3 of Summer House.
I sure did.
You worked on Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga cheek to cheek.
Somewhere in my apartment is like bobby pins from like her dressing room.
Why didn't you bring those here today?
I don't know. I need to find them. I told my boyfriend this also. I don't even know if he ever knew. And he was like, what? And I was like...
So we're getting into that. Also, present day, you're about to go into production, or you literally just started production on the new season of Jersey.
Correct.
And you worked on last season of Jersey.
Correct.
So that's just like a broad overview. First of all, you're fresh. Let's get real for a moment. Let's go real down to earth.
Okay.
You're fresh off of a ferry home from Fire Island.
Correct. It was fun. The weather was bad some of the days, which was obviously upsetting. I know it's like your haven of your life and you love it. I am warming up to it, but I don't know. I don't love the beach. Is that bad? That's already a strike against it for me.
You said earlier.
I'm not a beach person.
You said it's not your favorite place.
I would love to go to a museum. I would love to like go out to like a really nice dinner. Like, I don't know. I like the beach, but I'm not one of those people that's like, I need to be on the beach from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. I'm just not.
Same. No, same. I can do like an hour at the beach and like, that's it. I don't want to be in the sun that long. And also, it's mostly that. It's like I could be reading, I could be listening to something, but still, I don't want to be in direct sunlight.
Correct.
I'd rather be in an air conditioned.
Well, that's why you have good skin, because you're not like getting sun damage every day, like some people there. But
so this begs the question: why did you go to Fire Island if you hate it?
My boyfriend's friend had a house that was like open for days. He loves going there, so we went. It was fun, but like it was something where I was like, all right, I'm ready to go home now.
We're recording this live and in person in my apartment, and you were so kind enough. One of the first things you said, this is your first time in your apartment, in my apartment, and one of the first things you said was that it's very Luanne de Lesseps.
It reminds me.
To which I responded, not Bethenny. So I want to know your reason.
Bethenny likes less clutter, and not in a bad way. I'm a clutter freak. Like, hoarders should come to my house, but you have like very well curated books that are and like your wall color is the same as Luann's. Basically, it's very Luann, and like the shape of your apartment is also similar to hers. Kind of, it just reminds me of her place, and it even smells similar to hers in a good way. Yes,
I love all of
very
this.
Luann.
I love this for Luann and I.
Yeah. It's very Luann.
Are you talking about her place in the city?
Her place in the city that she has right now with the little piano. You've seen it on the show. You've seen it on, it would have been last season 13 of New York. You would have seen that apartment. That's the one I'm talking about.
No, completely. And also in her most recent interviews, if she's ever doing an interview over Zoom, the piano is like behind her.
Yep.
So speaking of Luann's apartment, let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
Well, I want to get this out first about Luann's apartment. Until like recent years, was she just renting an apartment for the show? Like a short-term lease?
Oh, no. No, I think she had apartments that she really liked, and then she found this one that she really, really likes, but she was kind of bouncing around. But it was not at all for the show. She really lived there. All her stuff was there. It wasn't like... I feel like on the Kardashians, they're always like, these aren't really their homes, or like, it's like they're completely staged homes. That's what I've heard. I don't know that for sure, but like that's not the case with Luann.
Tell me your story. Like, how did you get into... I mean, you're young. Like, you're 30...
33.
You're a young 33. You just had a birthday.
July 22nd.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Are you a fellow July Leo?
I'm the last day of Cancer, but I'm a Cancer sun, Leo moon, Leo rising.
Oh, wow.
Born on a solar eclipse. Like, we could go into astrology. Like, my son's in the 12th house. Like, it's a whole thing.
Oh, I love it. I'm a July Leo, and we're so rare.
What are you? Wait, what are you? What
July 31st.
Oh, yeah. Oh, speaking of happy birthday.
Thank you.
I went to college for film video, which was basically like film production. And I took like editing classes and producing classes and all kinds like film theory classes, kill me. But like I did a bunch of film classes. I like always wanted to do it. I was like, when we were younger, we would like, I took my dad's camcorder and we made like The Real World, but it was like start and stop recording on my dad's camcorder. Like I was editing like in the moment of the thing, like producing the whole thing. Like we did the beginning where it was like, this is the story of 7 strangers. Like I always was like writing stories. Like I always wanted to be a storyteller regardless of what medium it was. I then went to school for film and then like moved to New York. My first job ever was Iron Chef America's final season on Food Network. And from there I did a Rachel Ray show, which was called Week in a Day. She would take like, it was like food prepping, like meal prep, what everyone does now. It was like this, she basically would take like a week's worth of food and make it in like one sitting and basically do like these casseroles that you could reheat or all these different like meals that you could put in the oven. And like if you were a working mom or if you were someone who like needed to just come home and like put something in the oven and not think about it and not actually cook, you could make all these on Sunday and you could like heat them all up. And then from there, I started doing a show on Food Network called The Kitchen that's still on Saturday mornings with Sunny Anderson, Jeffrey Zakarian, Jeff Morrow. At the time, it was Marcella Valladolid, Katie Lee, now Katie Lee Beagle. And from there, I got my first job on Real Housewives of New York, season 7 as a PA. And then I've been bouncing back from doing Food Network, like food type shows, competition shows, and like, docu-follow reality shows like Real Housewives ever since.
Okay, the Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett. Like, what was your role on the Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett cheek-to-cheek shoot?
I was a PA that was like running errands, like going to get stuff. Like I was like making signs. It was early in my career, but like I did get to walk into the theater at one point and they were like, her and Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett were like rehearsing stuff. And I was like standing right there. And at one point, like she walked off the stage to go back to her dressing room and she walked like directly in front of me. And I just like stood in awe of her.
And then you took her bobby pins.
And then I took her bobby pins out of her dressing room. But it was beautiful. This was like when their first album had come out together. And so it was a big deal because it was going to be on PBS, like great performances. And it was like all these, like, it was her first foray back into music, I think, also after like art pop had like done so poorly for her. And she was kind of rebranding herself. So like there were a lot of eyes on it.
Justice for art pop. It's honestly one of her best.
Correct. But like, that was what was happening. You know what I mean? It was like I didn't really do much on the show, but I was there and it was just cool to like be there for that moment. So I can always say like I was there for that.
It's wild that your first season of RHONY was season 7.
Season 7. Bethenny's first season back.
And Dorinda's first
season.
I always tell people who have never watched a stitch of Housewives, and when I try to sell it to them, I always say
watch RHONY.
Start at season 7. Well, I say you have to start with New York. Start at season 7 because you're reintroduced to Bethenny in a completely new stage of her life, and you're meeting Dorinda for the first time. And I say watch that straight through until really Bethenny's last season, which I believe Bethenny's last season. I don't know if I'm in the minority or what people really think about it. I think her best performance was her last season.
Oh, really?
In a lot of ways. What do you think was her best performance?
I don't know. Season 7 was fun because she was back in it. Season 11 was really fun. I also did season 11. That was a fun season. We had a lot of fun that season.
So with New York, were you on all of them? 7, 8, 9?
No, I did not do Tinsley's first 2 seasons. I did 7 and 8. I did not do 9 or 10. I did 11 and 12.
So you were there for the inaugural Berkshires.
I was there for the inaugural Berkshires. Correct. It's crazy. Yeah, it's funny. I don't really remember that much from that trip, though. That's what's funny.
And what was your role in these early days of working on Housewives? What was your title?
I was at the key PA for season 7. I then was an associate producer season 8. I then came back as the talent producer for season 11 and 12.
What's the difference between an associate producer? Like, what does that job entail? And then what is a talent producer?
For season 8, I was an associate producer. I was on the segment team. So we would like deal with like the restaurants. We would deal with locations. We would deal with like having places allow us to film there. That was a huge part of our job. And we would be like the liaison between the production and the location, whether that be the building of someone's apartment, whether that be a restaurant, whether that be a park, whether that be like, I don't know. Think about when you go to like a axe throwing or, the usual reality show places that we go that are like activities, bowling, whatever, what have you. Like I would be the person that would reach out and be like, hi, we want to film here. What's up? And then they either are like, yes, or they're like, I don't know. And then you facilitate that relationship. The talent producer is basically the person that's like letting the women know what their schedule is and like where they need to be when.
What would the other types of producers be?
A field producer would be the person that's like producing them like in the scene. Like, do you know what I mean? Being like the person that's like running the crew as we're shooting, which is like calling the cameras, making sure that everyone like knows what they're doing and all that kind of thing, which is like what I do now. And that's like what you think of as like when you hear the voices, like you heard my voice in season 13 of Real Housewives of New Jersey in the first like half of the season. That's my voice. And I'm interviewing the women. That's like something a field producer would do. And could go up from that to like the EP of the show.
Do you have any role in the confessionals?
Yeah, for a lot of it, I'm sitting there interviewing them. In Jersey season, like whenever someone asks like Teresa, like what is a fluffer? Yes. That's me. For a lot of the beginning of the season, probably like halfway through the season, it then turns into someone else. But like it was for a lot of the beginning of the episodes, it was me asking them the questions.
I don't know if you can say this or not, but for me, it's very clear that whenever they're coming up with a witty line, for example, if we're going to talk about this new season of New York, like Jenna Lyons making a pun about shakshuka, or one of them saying something that is clearly a writer trying to be funny, but in the moment, unless you're Bethenny pioneered that, coming up with witty lines in the confessional, in the same way that Erica Jane pioneered
the looks
in the confessional. I think it is my perception, it is my assumption that the producer is like feeding them lines.
You'd be surprised. A lot of that, you know, there's times when you ask them a question and you think you're going to get one thing and then they give you this really funny line and then you're like, oh my God, that was so funny. Okay, moving right along. Like it's an art form that you have to learn. Every new person on TV in general that I like ever have to interview, I'm like, this is like nothing you've ever done before. And you won't ever, like, there's no way that you're going to come in this and do it for the first time and be good at being in an interview chair. And it's a learned behavior. But once you learn it, people excel at it and they already kind of have in their head like what they want to say. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you think I'm like coming in and being like, okay, you're going to say that like you think that Jess is a huge bitch. But in theory, they actually were like, no, I actually know what I want to say about this when we filmed it. I'm actually going to like you'd be surprised the number of times when you think like, okay, I here's what I'm assuming that they're going to want to say. And they're like taking it in a whole different direction that ends up becoming much better.
How many hours are you doing confessionals with each woman?
A lot. Like not at a time. We sit down. It depends. It's always different in the show. And even in a competition show, sometimes there's like full days where they just do interviews all day and they cycle people through. But like times there's where people sit for hours or there's times where people sit for like 2 hours and then they're done.
I once heard, I think it was Barry Bernstein, it was either her or Lisa Shannon. I think the two of them were being interviewed and they had said that Bethenny in her interviews, she speaks in paragraphs. And I think maybe that's why, because she's giving them so much material to work with and then they just edit around it.
Well, and also you would know this from editing your own show, but like there's cut points where you can, you know what I mean? You're like, let me put in this. Let me say this, and this. And like, it's so much, especially with like food shows, like the person you would work on. I worked on this thing where it was a lot of very high caliber food talent that knows how to do interviews. So they'd be like, for this dish, I started with blank and then I did I just sat there and let them do it because they knew exactly what they needed to do. And it's like, first I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And they take you through the entire process of everything that they did in the dish. And then that is then used throughout. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I didn't have to like hold their hand through it. And they're like, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it in the blast chiller for this much longer because it needs to go away. Then I'm going to, and there would even be times that I'd be like, what about this? And they'd be like, let me just finish this. Like, let me just finish this dish so then it's done and you have it. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, it really is a thing where like you learn how to do it and then you become very good at it. So as much as like everyone wants to think that like I'm writing them out all these things that are like, here's exactly this line I want you to say. They really do like take the onus of it and like put it in their own words and they do like say what they feel, not what I think they feel.
What was the interview process like for you getting your first gig on RHONY? And also, were you like a Housewives super fan? Like,
yes,
who were you?
I was a watcher from day one. So when I was talking to, basically I met one of the EPs through mutual friends. And then we realized that we were like, oh, like, we actually know people in common. Like we work in the same industry. I didn't even realize this. I'm a PA, they're like an EP. And then I was working for one of their mentors at the time. So then they emailed like my boss and was like, hey, this person, like Chris DeRosa, like, what do you think of him? And the person at the time, she was like, he's really great. We love him. And then basically I was like, oh, I'm available starting in whatever time you're starting to shoot the next season. And then I got a job offer.
Was there any like interview process?
Not really, because they had gotten the sign off from like their mentor that I was good at with my job and that I was you know what I mean? I didn't need to like go in and be like, and then I didn't like show up in a suit to this thing. It really is like there are a lot of jobs you don't interview for. Like once you know people, like you're like, hey, are you available? Would you want to do this? And they kind of know what you can do and what you can't do. And so it's like, there's many jobs. Most jobs I interview for, I don't get.
That's so
which is crazy, but it's like, and it's not because I'm not good at being an interviewee or I'm not good at like my resume doesn't speak for itself, but like you mainly like get jobs from people that you know or like someone's co-signing being like, this person's really good.
Like, did Bethenny handpick you to produce Bethenny and Frederick and Big Shot with Bethenny?
No, Bethenny and Frederick, the person that was already the person I filled in, like I came in like a couple weeks late to that show and the person was going on a vacation or something like that. So they needed someone. And the director was the director of one of the guy that basically like lights all of the scenes and like make sure that the cameras, because again, sometimes on Outcast you have like multiple cameras. It's very hard for you to like, I don't mean director as in like it's a scripted show, but like they basically are like, okay, you need to be shooting this person. You need to be shooting this person. The director was someone I had worked with on Real Housewives of New York and who knew Bethenny really well. And so I kind of came in and was a surprise to Bethenny because, but he saw that I was looking for work and was like, oh, I need someone to fill in for this couple weeks for this show. Want to come do it with me? And I was like, sure. And then I was like, don't tell Bethenny, I want to just surprise her. And when I did walk out from like behind like a bedroom somewhere once, I was just like, oh my God, what are you doing here? And I was like, hi. And that was like very early on in our relationship. But Big Shot with Bethenny, I was working on a show. I was working on My Unorthodox Life season 1, and then the co-EP was then being asked to co-EP the Big Shot with Bethenny, and she was like, "Didn't you do Real Housewives of New York?" And I was like, "Yes, I know her really well," and then that led to that.
What was it like working on Big Shot with Bethenny?
It was a lot of work. It was height of COVID. We got tested every 72 hours. I've never felt safer in the pandemic than when I worked on that show because I was getting a test every other day. It was the winter, so it was leading into winter, so it was like very cold. And I remember the restaurant that was like right outside of our studio, like was packed to the gills with people like in full parkas, like just eating dinner, but it was like truly 30 degrees outside. I was like, these people are insane. But it was at that point where we were like so desperate to just like have some sense of normalcy. And so we were like really working really hard, like to make sure that we didn't have that it wasn't just like a COVID outbreak amongst the entire crew. And then we would have to shut down. And then these people that were on the show would have to be like sequestered in a hotel room for like more weeks than they already were. You know what I mean? It was like, it was that time where it was like, everything was like, you need to isolate for 14 days before you do anything.
But the whole thing, what I remember the most from Big Shot with Bethenny, aside from her peering out of that window, which is that iconic shot.
Yeah, I know. Funny.
What I remember the most is that she actually like shut down production and like changed kind of how she wanted like the game to be. Do you remember anything about that?
I shouldn't say too much about that, but it was something where, how do I say this?
Yeah, Chris and I, by the way, listeners, Chris and I chatted about, there's some things that Chris, do you want to say this?
I just shouldn't talk too much about the inner workings of certain things. And there's just like NDAs in place and all that kind of shit that I shouldn't really be like talking too much. But I can say, you know, I can do the usual little fun things. But it was a hard show. It was like, it really was when HBO Max was getting into reality. And there was just like kinks that had to be worked out, just like every season 1 show. Guess what? A season 1 of a show, like there's no format. And even if it's like a Bravo show where it's like, oh, we think this is like this, you have to work out kinks. There's things that work. There's things that don't. And you're figuring that out on the fly. It's the same as a food show that's season 1. It's the same thing as a competition show that's season 1. Any season 1 show, you're going to be working out the kinks, and there was kinks to work out.
Now, I would be remiss to not mention that you were part of the current Bethennys with... Yeah. with... What was your role in the Bethenny and Jill reuniting? Like, when did you get a call? Have you been working on the YouTube series? Because you are seen in the YouTube series.
I've been working on the YouTube series with Bethany. She called me up and was like, I have this idea. I just need someone to be there to like think about these things. So when I'm in it, you can like know what's like to just make sure that like the ship is being steered correctly.
This is for when Jill arrives.
This is like just in general, like in the series, like for the YouTube series.
YouTube. When did you get that call?
This year, probably spring. And so I was like, okay, sure. And she's like, it's really running gun. It's just us. Like, no, like we're not like, this is like, we call it the Muppets. And we started shooting her she's been doing all these reviews and everyone knows all her makeup stuff. So she's like, I've been going into the dollar store and people are like losing their minds. So let's do this YouTube series. And I said, sure. And then we've been shooting it sporadically. And it's like, kind of like, oh, I have this thing I want to do in this day. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. And then she was like, I have an idea. She's like, I have an idea. This is what it is.
And are you finding this out literally the day before?
Like 2 days before.
And what if you were on vacation?
I wouldn't be able to be there.
Okay.
It is what it is. But she basically called me and was like, this is my idea. I was like, okay, are you really want to do this? She was like, yes. And then she was like, I just need you to be here to make sure that it's like all shot correctly. And I was like, okay, got it. Next day drove to the Hamptons.
And I saw you were in the behind the scenes of it on the YouTube series. You guys were basically doing a rehearsal of like the car entering to make it look like a Housewives show.
Little bit.
How they do the jump.
I was like, let's do one little nod where like she puts her feet out of the door and like people will think that's funny. You know what I mean? And so I was like, and like our camera guy Kyle is like younger. It's like he doesn't shoot on Bravo shows. Like he's a younger guy. He does a lot of sports stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna explain to you how you're gonna shoot this so that we can like have this little Bravo motif like as it starts. But yeah, it was funny.
So what was your role in the Bethenny and Jill shoot?
I was just there. I interviewed, like when you see at the end, like Jill talking to the camera, like I'm interviewing her. I basically was just there to make sure that the cameras were shooting in the right place. And I basically made sure that the train is moving along.
That they were pointed in the right direction.
Yes, correct. And that the train is moving along. And like Bethenny, we talked a lot about what we want it to be like. And I'm like, but you're going to do this and and just basically be there. Like if something happens, I pull out my cell phone and start recording it also. You know what I mean? It's like, that's another thing is just like to be there to like an extra set of eyes.
How late? Because she shot material for like all these different, there was YouTube stuff, there was podcast stuff. How long was that? Like, when did Jill arrive? Like, how long were you there?
It was a long time. We wrapped at like.
Well, you and I talked the next day, and you said, "Yeah, I was there."
Oh my God, yes,
3 a.m.
I was like there until like very early in the morning. Right, I got home really late. I remember.
I think you got like 3 a.m.
Yeah. But that's because I was like, I'm just gonna go. Like she was like, do you want to sleep here? And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm just gonna drive home.
And do you have any like postmortem with her? Like, oh my God, like we did it. Like, is there any kind of high-fiving?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. But then there's also like, okay, like let's look at the edit of it. Then I'm like giving notes on the edits. Then I'm doing, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like, there's a lot more. It's not just I walk away and then go into the sunset and never hear from anyone again. It's like I'm involved throughout the situation, big or small, like involvement, but I am like watching the cuts of the things before we post them and stuff like that.
So what will your involvement be moving forward now that you're all hands on deck with Jersey?
I don't know. That's to be discovered. If she has something that's like on a day that like she knows how the shows work. So we'll see if she hits me up and is like, I want to do blank, blank, and blank on this day that works for you, then we'll do it. But if not, she can do it. You know, she knows what she's doing. She's not an idiot. So I don't always need to be there. You know what I mean? And there's times when I'm not, and it's been great. So
was this your first time meeting Jill?
No. She had come back a couple times on New York, like that Halloween party that she was there. Like I met her there. They did this. They went to the Angel Ball once, I think, or something like that we shot just like them getting ready for it. And she was there. Like I had met her a couple times before.
Were you at the funeral?
No.
Not your season?
That was not my season.
Okay. Did you work on, just remind me when we went through the list of RHONY seasons, did you work on season 13?
I filled in for someone that someone had to leave earlier. It was like they had to go on vacation or they were sick or I don't remember what the thing was. I did go there for a little bit, but not much. Like I was there for like maybe 2 weeks and just filling in because they knew that I could like hit the ground running and know almost all of the women. What
was your reaction to the way that all went down? How they canceled the reunion? Like just even as a viewer.
I don't know. It was strange, but it was one of those things where it was very... I think it was a hard season for them with COVID, with like a lot, like COVID, doing a show in COVID was very hard, like very hard. And so that was hard on everyone. And I think that season 13, I think the thing that that really hurt them was that like they weren't out at restaurants like mingling with people. It was just them. It wasn't a party of 30 people where there was like the friends and the usual Ramona's birthday party, the this, that. That's hard. It's hard to do a show that's supposed to be about like showing off New York City when you can only be there with like the 6 of them. Know what I mean? Like that's like, it's hard. Especially when, think about like when you watch a scene and it's like them walking down the street and then they like get to a bar and then they sit there and then they're flirting with guys and like they couldn't do any of that stuff. So it was a lot of apartments and it was a lot of, and they don't have these homes that are these, it's an apartment the size of yours that we're in right now. Like it's hard to do every scene of the show in something like that. It's hard. COVID was really hard for production. It really was. And we were like, there was a lot of factors that factored into it, but that I think was one big one that kind of like, even on a competition show, it's like we would have to sequester them all for like 2 weeks to make sure that no one had COVID. And that was like before tests were so reliable. Everything was just such a hard process, which we're used to being like, oh, this is happening right now. Okay, let's go right now. You know what I mean? And let's go, we're throwing everything in the garbage and let's go film whatever the reality of the situation is. There were so many protocols in place that like for good reason and to keep everyone healthy and safe, you couldn't just pivot on a dime and like go do whatever you wanted to do.
What is typically your role in reunions?
I'm usually not there.
Oh.
Yeah. There's really no reason for me to exist.
So who's coming up with the questions? For Andy?
I honestly don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Most of it is actual real questions sent in from people. Like Jess from New York asks, like, that's really your question.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Remember when Bethenny had, and I know I'm like honing in on Bethenny and I'm going to move away from it, but she is the reason for the season right now.
Yeah.
Remember when she had her radio show on Sirius?
No, I actually don't.
You don't know that Bethenny was on Radio Andy?
No, I didn't know that.
She had her own show for like 2 years. 1 year or 2 years on Radio Andy.
Wait, I really didn't know that. I swear to you, I didn't know this.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Okay, so, and she would have, this is when she and Carol were like besties.
Yeah.
She would always have Carol on, and this was during season 8, when season 8 was airing, and all they would do was talk shit about Luanne. It was like the two of them like really against Luanne.
Okay.
And
oh yeah, whatever, like Adam and all that shit. Okay, I'm back in it. Okay, here we go.
By the way, I just saw yesterday Adam had a baby.
What?
On Instagram.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Well, good for him.
Look at his last post. It's him with a child, and he's like, my son. And then I was reading the comments. One of them.
Oh, maybe I did know this.
One of the comments said, "Wait, where have I been? Who's the mother?" Which made me laugh.
That is funny.
Anyway, okay. Back to Bethenny's radio show. Anyway, she would take callers the way
every serious radio show does.
Every serious radio show does. And I was working from home. This was pre-COVID, of course, but I happened to be working remotely that day for whatever reason. I called in, got on air, and I asked her if she would ever write a book about her divorce. And she said, yes, I want to write a book called How to Not Get Fucked in Your Divorce.
Hilarious.
So I'm still waiting for that book.
That's
the book. Instead of whatever, I'm not here to her new book. Like that's the book that would have been like a big hit.
I mean, I'm surprised. Maybe she will. It would be a good one. She wrote a book called like I Suck at Relationships, So You Don't Have to. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is the actual. Did you read that book?
Of course I read it, but that predated our little.
Oh,
convo.
Really? Funny. It would be a good book. Mm-hmm. I remember I've told her this, but I like when I first moved to New York, it was when she had come out with The Place of Yes, and I remember reading that and being like so hell-bent. I was like hanging on to her every word.
A Place of Yes, underrated.
Yeah,
she belongs in Oprah's favorite things.
I know. I'm surprised she never got like that kind of, but it was like Oprah was like done by then. But like it really was like I remember like reading it and being like, be passionate about what you do and blah blah and this and that. And like it was like I remember like hanging on to her every word.
But it was
so
specific about her
business,
Martha Stewart apprentice experience. It was really good.
Yeah.
And also she has the audio. I recommend also listening to the audio, but I'm a big audiobook listener.
Love an audiobook. When are you sitting down and reading a book anymore?
Only if there's no audiobook available.
But you know what I mean? It's like, are you really doing that? Like I'm always like listening while I'm doing my dishes. It's like anytime I'm listening to a podcast, like when I'm like running menial errands, like I'm doing that with an audiobook. It's beautiful.
Okay. Back to you calling restaurants. This is what I want to talk about. Talk to me about the logistics of booking a place. So for example, I'm going to think of something, of course, like my mind is only going to Catch, but I'm going to move away from that. Let's think of a restaurant. Oh, okay. Here's a great one. Topping Rose in the Hamptons, they filmed many times, and Pierre's. These are two places in the Hamptons that they would film all the time. And of course, they already have the green light for filming at Topping Rose. They can already do that with the new RHONY.
Yeah.
But even a New York restaurant, like what have you had? Can you even name a restaurant where they're like, no, we don't want that? And what are the reasons?
Some people just don't want the lights, the extra light. They have like a mood, or the clientele would be annoyed by it. There's places that want something to do with it, and there's places that don't.
But what are the logistics? Like your job when you are doing that, like how many, like if you need to book a restaurant, do you have to like, is it usually like, don't you have like a catalog of restaurants that would say?
Sure. Yes. Or you work with like a PR, there's like PR people that you work with that then like have, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, I know this place would love to do it. There's ways that like you get your connections and you start to work with them. But then there's a lot of, I would just cold email places that were new. Like I used to go on the Eater New York opening ceremony and find the new places and be like, do you want to have these people? And some places are like, we'd love the press to be able to say that they came here. And then some people are like, no, we're really not into that. We don't want it.
When it comes to parties, something I think a lot of people don't know, because I've been at like a handful of those events.
I've shot parties with you at it before.
No.
Yes. You know this.
Wait, where?
But you used to come to like a lot of Luanne's stuff, I feel like. Yeah, when that was like when she
was through Ben Rimmelauer.
Did this air? Remember when she did her like workshop for her show?
Yes.
You were at that for sure. I remember you.
Not only was I at that, there's a tight shot of me and my ex like minutes before we broke up.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's insane.
By the time it aired, long-term relationship, I'm like, is she watching this?
Because it was like...
Well, it was like we were broken.
Yeah.
Like we weren't broken up, but like...
No, like clearly it was over.
It was a fight to like... She didn't want to go. Whatever. This is like way too personal in my shit. But like, I'm like, are you still coming to this with me? Like, we weren't broken up, but like, it wasn't a good night.
Yeah.
But she came.
Got it. Got it.
The memory is there.
No, but you were there. I was there shooting that. We didn't know each other, but I remember you because
But that did, it did air because I saw the two of us.
No, yeah.
But what I wanted to say was a lot of the big party scenes, like for example, when Leah McSweeney had like the anniversary thing for Married to the Mob, like a big party event like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that they can only, I'm talking about the music, they have to play just like ambient music in the room. Like people aren't hearing like Gaga, Madonna, Justin Timberlake. When they're dancing, they're literally dancing oftentimes to just not, it's like music that is totally.
I will say that the shows have stepped up their game, and like there's a lot of sound alikes now where there have been times where I've been like, is this Born This Way by Lady Gaga? Like, why the fuck are we playing this? Like, we can't, like, this is now on you. And then I'm like, oh no, it's not. But it sounds very much like it's come a long way from back in the day where it was abhorrent music.
But I would think that they'd be able to just mute the music out.
No. It's the minute that is copyright issue. So the minute that they would have to pay for that song, or the minute you hear that song, there's like an entire like roster of people that would need to be paid for that song.
No, but can't they just like erase that music?
It depends. It makes it much harder. Like it's just so much more work to do in post.
Okay.
Like why make it harder for yourself whenever you don't have to? Know what I'm saying?
What were in working on New York, your era in New York, what were the high for you personally as your job, the high highs and the low lows?
We filmed for a long time. Back in the day on New York, we used to film for like 5 months. And so it's a lot, and you work 6 days a week, and your one day off is like, you're still like, you know what I mean? Like you're like in it still. It's a grind. You know what I mean? Like you work and you work and you work, and you're in these people's lives every day, and you're in them in emotional moments. You're in them for funny, but like you're a part of these people's family for half of a year. It's a lot of work, and it's constant logistics. It's constant figuring out problems. It's constant. I was just in my book club, we were reading Madison Beer's memoir, this like YouTube girl that now is like this huge star, and she was telling a story about how she was doing this music video, and this like she was supposed to be in this like water tank that they were going to shoot her like under the water. It like broke, and they like had no idea what they were going to do, and they would have to like go into overtime for hours to figure it out, and they like finally settle on, she's like, we should just film this in my pool, and like we're just gonna have to go into like 5 hours of overtime, but we can do it. And I was like, in my book club, I was like, did anyone else have like a flashback of like every time they ever had to like figure out a problem at 11:30 at night whenever we're supposed to be cut an hour ago, and like there was this huge problem that we have to figure out? Like, that's my job.
What's an example of a huge,
like, oh, this is really good, but the cameras need to cut at this time. So what are we going to do? How do we get them home? How do we do that? Like, everyone should be going home. Like, how do we transport them back from this restaurant to wherever they're staying to do, you know what I mean? Or half the people want to go here and half the people want to go here. We wanted them all to go to one place, but we want it to be real and not a scripted television show, which everyone thinks it is. And so like, if they're going to split up, like who goes where and who goes, we need to figure this out right now because they're about to split up. Things like that. You know what I mean? Just like on the fly, like we're following the reality of what's happening. So we need to pivot from our plan right now. And everyone needs to know right now what's happening and do it.
Unfortunately, you were not part of the Cartagena trip.
I was not. I don't even know anything about it really, which is sad.
But I believe you were in the Miami Life is Not a Cabaret.
Was there for that, yes.
Tell me that experience.
That was a fun trip. I love the house there. They really liked. I remember having a lot of fun. Like they had a lot of fun on that trip. The going to shopping for the art, they really, really liked. It was a fun time. And then of course, like tensions were high because of like all the season and people lost it. You know what I mean? They had to like, this was the time to like say how they felt. And the thing I think people think so badly is like, I could be on a reality show. I could do this. And I'm like, yeah, but like, think about how many times you bite your tongue when your like relative is like, says something rude to you. And you just like let it go. Think about how many times that your friend is like mean to you and you just say like, oh, like, no. I've been calling it recently like conflict resolution porn. And it's like, that's what it is. Cause like we as people don't want to like, we want to like be able to just like we watch it and we're like, I wish I could tell my mother-in-law to like go fuck herself. I wish I could tell my friend who's insufferable to like get a reality check. I wish I could tell my brother that like I am annoyed with that, like I'm annoyed with him and like this is why and he doesn't support me and blah blah blah. But we don't. We like hold it all in and we watch this because we're like, I wish I could do this. I wish I could be Tamra being like, Shannon, do you believe that like this other friend would like not tell this secret about you? And then have Shannon be like frozen in fear, which was stellar in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought it was like beautiful television. Like I wish, like that's what we wish we could do, and these people on these shows are doing it.
Outside of New York, because you were responsible for that, and I guess also Jersey. We can keep Jersey in there. Of all the shows, and you can, if you want to mention Below Deck, anything. Which show do you think is the best produced?
That's a very good question. I think there's ebbs and flows with everything. There's times, and that's I think the other thing is like there's a testament to these people being on TV for so long and being like basically our modern day soap opera where we see them go through so many things and sometimes it's good things and sometimes it's not. And sometimes they have good years and sometimes they don't. But we're along for the ride with them. Like I used to want to fucking slap Dorit Kemsley. Like I used to want to like slap some sense into her because I was like, oh my God, she is so annoying and I can't stand her. And she's so insufferable. Now I'm obsessed with her. Like, I think she's so funny. I love that she, like, I've just, like, accepted who she is, and now I'm, like, fine with it. Like, Tamra, as much as everyone's like, I can't stand Tamra, I think Tamra's, like, a perfect housewife. She's ready to do the job. She's there. She's, like, in it to win it. She's getting involved. She's getting in the mud with everyone. She's getting into the dirty details of everyone. She's, like, here to listen to people. She's not holier than thou. She's ready to receive. Whoever has something that they need to say, Tamra's always ready to receive it. And it's not like that's stupid or like I'm not interested in this. She's always there in the nitty gritty. But again, there's been great seasons of OC. There's been terrible seasons of OC. There's been great seasons of New York. There's been bad seasons of New York. There's been great seasons of Jersey. There's been terrible seasons. Like they ebb and flow and you don't. I'm always grateful that like the viewers are ready to be along for the ride with us, whether if we have to get through a season that's hard. And like, because that person is in a hard time in their life and we're documenting it and it's not fun and it's not funny, but it's like they need to go through this to then get out on the other side and be able to like be funny again.
As your role as a talent producer, which is that what you're doing now for Jersey?
No, now I'm a supervising producer.
Ooh, promotion.
So like field producer, but like more involved and like, yeah, promotion.
Wow. Okay. Mazel. Very excited.
Thank you.
So, okay, wait, going back to the role of talent producer, that your role on RHONY doing that after you were an associate producer, give me the nitty gritty. Like you talked about the schedules, but like what goes in, like what does your day look like?
You talk to them a lot. You talk to the women a lot. You talk to everyone. It's like everyone, that job is really helping, making sure everyone's on the same page as far as like what we're going to do or like what they have coming down the pipe. Like, oh, I have this event that I want to do in a couple weeks. Like you guys should be planning to be covering this. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And just making sure. And that's the other thing is everyone's like, the parties are all fake. The parties are all fake. And like, no one, blah, blah. It's like, no, like these people really have these things going on in their lives. And then we document them. So that's a huge part of that job.
And as now supervising producer in Jersey, what were you doing in Jersey last season?
Field producer.
So now as supervising producer, what does that entail?
More involved. Same. It's like a similar job, but more involved, talking a lot more with people, making decisions. You know what I mean? Like kind of like if a few people aren't there, I'm the highest one in the rank. You know what I mean? To basically be like, okay, pivot, let's go. And then I'll tell them that this is what we're doing kind of a thing. And guess what? You're all in it. Like when you're shooting, like you're all together. It's not like it's like, oh, only this person goes. Like everyone's together. There's a crew of people that I've worked with for 10 years that all do the shows together. We all know each other. And it's like, everyone's in it and everyone's making decisions and working. And it's like, I know everyone wants to know like this job does this and then this job. It's like, we're all doing this, you know, at the end of the day, like if someone needs something with the location, I can go walk over and be like, hey, can we turn the music down? It's really loud. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's all the same. You know what I mean?
Talk about I think something that a lot of people aren't aware of is that there's the production company and then there's the network. And the two don't always agree.
The way that I always explain it is like, because people are always like, oh, you work for Bravo, or oh, you work for Food Network, or oh, you work for like whatever, Max, HBO Max at the time. And I always say, no, that's technically my client. Like if we had to think of it from like a business standpoint, you are employed by a company that then is put like,
I mean, I know what you're saying.
I know what it is. Okay. I work, okay, there's an ad agency and then there's like Apple computers. The ad agency is like, we want to make an ad for you, Apple computers, that's like this, this, and that. Or Apple's like, I'm employing you to make this ad. That ad agency would then hire me to then work on the ad. And then between the ad agency, me, and Apple computers, we then make the show together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is.
Like, for example, I want to talk about two things here when it comes to like the network and the production company. So the production company for Jersey wanted to get rid of 4 women.
Oh, I swear to you, don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Like for real. And I shouldn't talk about any of that stuff, but that's
right.
the first time I've ever heard that.
I mean, this is.
I shouldn't talk about it. I shouldn't.
Okay.
But
okay.
I promise you.
So let me say it, and I'll just say it, just to cite an example, and then I want to go into Vanderpump Rules as another example.
Oh, great.
Where the production company may want to get rid of some people, but Bravo ultimately makes the final call. No matter what it is, Bravo is the final call.
I know there's like a lot of factors that go into it, but I don't know. I truly like anything I say will be my opinion that I'm making up.
So Vanderpump Rules, their production company is Evolution, and of course Bravo is the network. How did you think the production handled all of that, where the world finds out about something at the tail end, and then they clearly had to go back and
pick up cameras and stuff? I thought it was great. I'm very interested to see how they move forward, because like without Tom Sandoval and Raquel, like there's no, what is the show? Know what I'm saying?
Well, Tom has filmed the whole time. Raquel has not yet filmed anything.
Because like that's the thing is like he has to stay on the show.
Oh, he's on the show.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It'll be interesting to see how they do it, and I'm interested to see if it like even. We'll see.
You're interested to see if it
It's just like hard because they like clearly don't want anything to do with him, and so it's like, how do you not want anything to do with someone and then have to be on a reality TV show with them? Because at the end of the day, what I don't want is like just random scenes of him by himself. Like, remember back, I'm trying to think of like other shows that would have like examples of this. Like people that would just have like whole storylines of just like them on their own, and they just would never show up to an all cast, or I can't like think of one off the top of my head.
Remember how Dorinda didn't want Sonia coming to the Berkshires, and so they had to.
But that was like a one-time thing of like, that was a one-time thing versus, I guess like Vicky back in the day kind of would do this where she like wouldn't be involved with a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, why are you here then? Like that kind of a thing. Like I'm interested to see how they handle that.
Bravo was insisting that they film those clearly faked pickup scenes, like where Ken is like teetering in, saying like, "Oh, I can't believe Raquel slept over at Sandoval's." Like those scenes that they were trying to fill in the gaps. Production did not want to do those. It was Bravo that was forcing those.
Wait, say this to me again.
Okay, so you know how toward the end of Vanderpump Rules,
yeah,
we had inserted scenes that were clearly faked because they were trying to like fill the audience. They basically, Bravo, I think, doesn't trust the audience. I think they think the audience is dumber than we are. That we can't figure things out, or that we can't take the benefit of the doubt of, okay, like all of this, they need to like spoon feed like anything that we missed. So they'll create a scene in order to have some sort of visual representation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think they had to pick up those cameras and they just were like, we got to shoot. We got to get whatever we can. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, it was like happening. The world was watching. Like it was craziness, pandemonium over the story. So I think they were just like, shoot whatever we can shoot. You know what I mean? Which is like what I would do. You know what I mean? It's like, we have to just get cameras and like go to people and like.
Is there anything you've seen in recent years on any show, on any like Bravo related show that you would have been like, oh, I really would have done it differently?
Yeah, like there are certain things, but it's like it's also not my decision. It's also not you know what I mean? The cast members are free to their own devices in the sense of like, if they want to go, like, I'm not like stopping something because like, I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like, they really are like everyone thinks it's like these, like we like tell them everything to do and it's so scripted, but like if they want to go like left with it, they go left with it.
You also worked on season 3 of Summer House. Mm-hmm. What was your role there?
I was segment. So I did talk to a lot of the restaurants in the Hamptons. And that was the thing that's interesting is because like, Summer House is more of like because they were a lot at that house. Like it's a house reality show as well. So there was a lot of scenes where you're just there at the house, like helping people and making sure that like they throw these big elaborate parties. So then you're like facilitating that. And like, it was, yeah.
What goes into that?
They all are like, we want to do this party. So they buy all these like props. Like they do a lot of it themselves on that show, I feel like. But no, it's just like, oh, we're going to do this. And then they invite friends and they've done the show for so long that they kind of like know how to do it. And so it's really that show was fun because it was very different. It was a Bravo show, but it was very different because you were like at that house a lot. And it was like these big elaborate parties and they have like foam parties and stuff like that. That's like fun that like we would never do on like Real Housewives. You know what I mean?
With Summer House and also when you go on the trips with the women, I assume you have like the production has their own house or their own like.
Well, hotels. Like we'll stay at hotels.
Do you have to get there far in advance of the women arriving?
It depends. Like some crews do. Some people will be there to make sure like everything is good and all that stuff. But like I usually fly with the cast.
When did you find out that they were going to basically shelve RHONY original recipe?
When everyone else did.
What was your reaction?
It was interesting. It was, I don't know. I was like, I kind of get it. And then also like, that's a heavy lift for like, you know what I mean? It's a heavy lift for like the new girls to come into, but it was definitely interesting. And it's interesting to see everyone's opinions of it now.
What do you think?
I haven't watched a lot of it. I've only watched like an episode and a half of it. My boyfriend is like, I want to actually watch this with you. So we've been traveling and doing all this stuff. So I haven't watched a lot of it. So I don't want to like say what I think yet, just because I haven't seen all of it, but it's hard. It's hard when you come on a show season 1 and it's like, you have to figure it all out. You know what I mean?
And as far as the legacy of it all, well, first of all, I do want to say, I think one of the worst decisions Bravo ever made was wasting Alex McCord on a random girls trip that didn't involve any original RHONY women. And then they went and shot a legacy.
Oh, I disagree with you completely.
Tell me.
I think it's fun to see Alex like with other people.
But she's only coming back. I mean, well, as far as we know, I'm assuming she's like, I'm doing this one time and then get the fuck out of my life. I could be totally wrong. We could be seeing her for the next decade. But how do you not have her on RHONY Legacy?
I don't know. I would love to see her like be received by people that don't know her.
Hard disagree. I want to see how she interacts with modern day Ramona.
Yeah.
And also like the things that they said to her at the time. I wish they really had gotten that. I think they fucked up with Jill, or I think she was playing hardball and it like went sideways. I think that if they had gotten that would have been magic to reunite the original cast?
It's hard though. People's schedules, like it's like not for nothing. It's like it's a lot goes into it. Yes, you're right, sure, but like it's hard.
What would be your dream show to work on?
I have my own ideas for shows that are like not Real Housewives that I'm like, I would love for this to be made. But then there's like, I kind of am. That's the sad part. Isn't that funny? It's like you kind of already are.
Oh, wait. This one I ask you. Why did you jump from New York to Jersey? Was it just timing?
No, just like I was offered the job and I did it. You know what I mean? It was just, they don't shoot at the same time, but there was others. It's all scheduling. You know what I mean? So it's like, not that I was like, I would never, it's not even like I was like, I would never do that show. It's just like, I wasn't asked to do that job. And then I was kind of reintroduced to the person that runs it. And then I was offered the job. You know, it's all scheduling. Like there were times when I was like, would you want to do this? And I was like, well, I'm already doing this show for Food Network at this time in this place. Like it's all scheduling. Like sometimes there's shows that you really want to do, but you can't because there's a month and a half overlap of like the two shows and you can't be in two places at one time.
Do producers have any role in BravoCon whatsoever?
Some people go and do panels. Like some of the EPs are do panels and do stuff like that. But like it's a whole nother world that like puts on the show. Like I like wouldn't really be like I could I guess like do it, but like they're not like coming to me to be like you need to do this. Like it's like to put on a convention is very different from a show, the television show. So it's like there's like I don't know who the agency probably is that does it, but like that's not like in theory I could do it because like I would know a lot of the women, but it's like they wouldn't be asking me to do that.
I figured, yeah. And last tip on Housewives, the taglines. It is my belief, I think that we should sunset the taglines. I don't think they do anything.
I don't know. I kind of like them.
Even though they are so poorly written.
Who cares? Let it just be. Let it be.
They're so bad.
Some of them are bad, but some of them are always bad, but some of them are hilarious.
The women don't even get to pick their own.
But if they really want one, then they sell it, then they'll, like, you know what I mean?
Who is picking?
Like Sheree being like, she by Sheree, more like she broke the internet. Like I peed my pants. Like so dumb and stupid, but hilarious.
All right. Finally.
Okay.
You are the star alongside your buddy Dominic Pupa, who is a fellow reality TV veteran producer.
Correct.
And I'm going to talk to him separately because I knew if I had the two of you here, the two of you would talk over each other.
Yes,
it would have been a nightmare.
100%.
For me and everybody listening.
Yes.
Hopefully this was not a nightmare for people.
No, it was not.
Hopefully this was a trip to heaven. You have a show called Fixing Famous People.
Correct.
Whose idea was this?
I was on Kate Casey's podcast and was like, we were talking about the Harry and Meghan documentary, and I said to her, if I had 15 minutes in the room with Meghan the Stallion, I was about to say, Meghan Markle, she would be the president of the United States. And I was just so frustrated with how poorly they were like doing what they were doing. And then I was talking to Kate and was like, I really want to do another podcast. I don't know what it should be. And she was like, you had the idea on my show. That's what you should do, is like tell celebrities like what they should do. And then from there, I kind of like developed the idea. And I had just also seen Dominic in his holiday show, and we had talked, and I would been like, we should do something together. So it was like, he was in the back of my mind. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, would you do this with me? Like, I think it'd be really funny, and you're really funny, and we could do this. And he was like, I have known nothing about podcasts. Let's do it.
And what's so fascinating about Dominic, who I just ran into in P-Town,
yes,
and like we did a whole pre-interview at the boat slip. What's most fascinating about Dominic is he worked on season 2 of RHONY.
Correct.
Along with like a ton of other shows, and like we're going to go deep on all of those. But how do you even know each other?
His husband and I worked on Chopped together probably like 10 years ago. And also many of our friends like in the industry we have mutual friends. Like we have like a laundry list of mutual friends together. So I had always known him very tangentially and very like, oh yeah, my friend Dom. And then we had been on our friend Tom Chacho, who is the executive producer of Real Housewives of Atlanta. He wrote a scripted short that was about like basically like Superman and Lois kind of a thing. And Dominic and I both acted in that short.
And I had the pleasure of doing this show, and we did Ellen.
People loved your episode, by the way.
Thank
loved you. The like deep dive on her like history of her like career. They loved it.
No, you would send a list of like celebrities to fix, I guess, people who are in your backlog.
Yes.
And none of them were really jumping off the page for me. I said, we should do Madonna. And I
was like, we tried. It was hard. And then she was like hospitalized and almost died. And I was like, let's give her a minute before.
When you're ready to do Madonna, can I please come back and do that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We should have like a round table about Madonna is what we should do.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah. Once she slips up again, we'll bring it back and you'll be there.
Do you have a favorite? If somebody's like, where do I start?
The Demi Lovato episode is very funny. A lot of people say that the Mindy Kaling episode is very funny in their favorite episode. I personally hear most about either Meghan and Harry, which was our first episode. People loved your episode. I think what you should do is you should look at like the list and like think about the celebrity you want to hear about or someone that might be your favorite or the person that you like really don't like. And like if any of those people jump out to you, start with that.
Will you do this for me?
Yes.
After this season of RHONY has closed, will you come back and do a thorough analysis and review of how these girls have done? I want to get into the Jenna Lyons of it all, but we don't have much to work with right now.
Oh, I could do that.
You can do that.
I could do that. I did not work on this season, so.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So I feel I could talk about it as a private citizen.
As a civilian, I want to critique it with you. I want to hear all your thoughts. Like, who do you think is going to make it? Who are we going to be talking about in 5 years, and who's going to be a one and done?
Yeah.
Chris DeRosa, I love you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope people thought this was fun. I feel like everyone's going to think it's like so boring.
Why?
I don't know. Because it's like, you're like, this job. I'm like, yeah, I just like I do this. And it's like, I don't know. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for coming on our show and plugging it. Thank you so much.
This was the best. Thank you.